School's out for summer. School's out forever.
So today, me and a few of my friends wandered around the old pre-K building. Not anything super exciting happened, but we did see something peek around the corner in a bathroom, and we heard noises. What really freaked me out was that one of my friends kept saying he was feeling energy around him and in certain areas. He's not one to believe in this kind of stuff. We were in the kitchen when he said he felt the presence of two spirits, one to the right and a heavier one next to the door. Then one of my other friends jumped back and said something whispered, "Help," in their ear. Then my friend said the energies were gone. That was freaky. After a while, we all went home, and my friend, who was feeling energy, said he thinks something followed him home. He said he felt like someone was watching him, and that when he was alone in his room, he heard someone whispering. He also said while we were wandering the halls, he felt a bunch of energy behind him. He volunteered to be in the back of the group, and he said it felt like they were watching us. We did know that this place was haunted in advance, so we were fully aware of that. We had heard some stories about some of the ghosts. We have some classes in the building that's connected to the pre-K as well. We all agreed to go in there because we wanted to experience the supernatural. I do also think that my friend might be a sensitive, because he kept saying he felt pressure in certain areas, emotions and energies. I'm fairly certain my high school theatre was haunted. When I was in high school my senior year, I was helping out with the school play. A girl I liked was in the play and asked if I could help, so of course I said yes. One night, after rehearsals had concluded, I stayed back in order to organize the prop room. I had major OCD back then. A few minutes go by and I hear the door to the stage slam shut. Something to note about this door is that if you closed it without propping it open, you'd surely lock yourself in and be screwed. So, being the nice guy that I was back then, I walked over, propped the door open and stepped inside. I can already hear my Mexican ancestors call me a pendejo for going towards the noise. Anywho, I walk onto the stage and start calling out, asking, "Hey, anyone here?" Everyone already left, so time to go. You know you nearly locked yourself in here, right? It was silent, except for this boom, boom, boom steps I was hearing on the stage. I didn't only hear them, but I felt them through my shoes, and it shook me. I thought nothing of it and kept asking who was around. Still no responses. And then I started hearing what sounded like someone running up and down the aisles. After a while, the spotlights started making noise, as though someone were playing with them. At that point, I figured my friend Amy was messing with me, so I texted her and asked if she was messing with me. She said no. I said BS, and she FaceTimed me. She showed me. She was in her room and said, "Yep, I left my comfy bed and comfy pajamas to mess with you." I apologized, said we'd talk the next day and hung up. After what felt like an eternity, the spotlight stopped. The running in the aisles stopped, but the stomping on the stage didn't. They felt closer and closer and closer until it felt like they stopped right behind me. I felt a breeze on my neck and thought, okay, it has to be the wind. Then I felt 3 sharp nails land on my shoulder, one at a time. That was the last straw. I bolted out of there faster than I ran any 3-mile run I ran in the military afterwards. Grabbed my backpack and ran as fast as I could out of the theatre building. Any thoughts? Any similar experiences? This still freaks me out to this day, just thinking about it. This is something I experienced back in 2019 while studying in secondary level. Before I start, my school is really old. and it should be considered as a historic site. During the Japanese invasion, bodies were buried beneath our school floors. Already chills are sent down my spine writing this. It was around 1 p.m. after lunch break. I wanted to collect my books from my locker, which is situated at the highest floor of our school. Before entering, you will see the statue of Mary glaring at you, scrutinizing your every move. It was already frightening to see her haunting face, but the location itself was already isolating. When you reach there, one side of the hallway is filled with lockers and the other is a storeroom. In front of you is a science lab. Anyways, I went to the further end of the hallway to collect my books. As I was walking, I felt dread weighing over my shoulders. I felt that something was amiss. I ignored my instincts, which will later cost me eventually. I sat on the floor, taking my sweet time removing books from the locker. I heard footsteps made from a heel within the science lab. The sound was extremely loud as the floors are made of wood. I paused and really tried to focus on the sudden noises. It grew louder with each passing minute before coming to a halt. I peered into the classrooms and the lab, but nobody was there. The sky grew gloomy. I stood there, waiting for someone to appear, but after minutes of waiting, there was no sign of teachers. In fear, I paced towards the exit. After a few steps, I heard voices of children laughing and running around right behind me. This was odd, since children should not even be here, as it was a secondary school. The noise wasn't even from the outside since it was a Monday and there isn't any physical activity on the first day of school. I sped up my walk. Suddenly, all the lockers in unison were making loud and brash noises from the inside, not the outside, the inside. I jumped 10 steps, almost broke an ankle and ran back to my classroom. I cried in front of everyone. Everyone thought I was hysterical. I never went back up there again. I told my classmates to bring my books from upstairs. In my final year, my locker was situated on the lower level as well, but a different building. As a kid, I went to a school that was renowned for being haunted. It was built in the 1910s, but somewhere in the mid-1950s there was a devastating fire that burnt the whole top floor, and many children died that day. They rebuilt the building without the top floor, making it a 2-story building with a really creepy basement. I have a few stories to share about this school. 1. There was always an eerie feeling about the school. If I was walking around alone, I felt like I was always being watched. The wall of one staircase was filled with paintings of children that former students had painted. These paintings took up 3 floors of staircases. Every time my friends and I passed by these paintings, we would find something different. A soccer ball that was never there, a girl with a flower that was never there, etc. One day we decided to take note of the specific things to see if they were the same the next day. This was the time of no phones, so no pictures. One note that we took was that one girl in the paintings was smiling and looking towards the right at her friends with a flower. The next day the girl was looking straight, directly at us, with no smile. We then avoided that staircase at all costs. 2. The school had a boiler room that you could peek into from the outside, but we weren't allowed inside. Sometimes at recess when we're playing around that area, we would see white apparitions dart around inside. When we would look through the window, nothing would be there. Being kids, we were a bit curious though. One day we were having an event after school and decided to go up to the boiler room door and try to open it, bravely, since our parents were in the gymnasium next to it. When we turned the knob, it was locked. So we knocked on it, 3 times to be exact. Immediately, we got 3 knocks back from the other side, and the doorknob started rattling like it was going to open. We all ran for the gymnasium and never looked back. 3. This story is also about the boiler room, and it may sound absolutely crazy, but I swear, it's true, and one of the craziest things that happened to me. Once, when I peeked in from the outside, I saw a huge pipe in the middle of the wall extending into the abyss. At the edge of the pipe was a girl's body, just laying there, presumably dead. I told my friends to look, but by the time they peeked in, it was gone. For about a month from that day, I kept having nightmares of a girl in black hair, pale skin. begging me to help her. It was always the same dream, and when I asked her what she needed help with or from, the dream would end before she could tell me. Creepy. 4. This is a story I heard from the janitors who spend the night at the school. They were in the janitor's office in the basement one night, just chatting and having some snacks, when they heard kids laughing. It gradually got louder, and they started hearing multiple kids laughing, bouncing balls, playing, running around, etc. They went into the gymnasium where the sounds were coming from, and they immediately stopped. They found one singular ball in the middle of the gym, and it rolled over to them. Anyways, they eventually broke down the school, and now they've built houses on the lot. Thanks for listening. I work as a shift lead / lifeguard at the local high school pool. The pool isn't very old. It's been built in the last 15 years or so. I know there haven't been any drowning deaths there, but there is a rumor that somebody slipped in the men's locker room and died from head injuries, but I've never found out if that was real or true. I've worked there for just over a year now, and I've experienced weird things all the time. Lights turn on and off, toilets flushing in bathrooms when nobody is there, strange noises and thuds heard. Basically, a lot of things that skeptics could pass off as natural occurrences, faulty lights and whatnot. My first story starts very early in the morning. Every morning we open at 5:30 a.m. I don't know why people want to swim so early, but whatever. I showed up at 5 a.m. to unlock the pool and do morning setup. Around 5:15 a.m., I hear a knock on the front doors and see a guy standing out there. He was quite underdressed for the cold weather, but I didn't care. I opened the door and told him we didn't open till 5:30. He responded, "Can I come in and change anyway? I won't get in the pool until then." I figured that was fine and let him in, and he came to the front desk and pulled out his punch pass and scanned it. The program prompted me that his pass was expired. I told him that it was expired and he responded, "Oh, it was a punch pass. Do they expire?" I explained to him that the punch passes do have to be used within a year of being purchased, and then told him not to worry about it, and he could just go in today without paying. He said thank you, and then took his swim bag to the locker room. A little bit later, my co-worker texted me saying he couldn't come in today because he was super sick. I knew he was lying, but whatever. Now, over half an hour has passed and nobody else came into the pool. I looked through the office window into the pool deck. Our pool is indoor and our office is right next to the deck and is glass, allowing us to view the deck. The man wasn't out there, and I could see that the men's locker room motion-activated lights had turned off. I went out onto the deck and looked around. He wasn't there. I feared for the worst and ran into the locker room. The lights turned on and revealed nobody was there. No bag, nothing. I was a little freaked out at first, but then realized maybe this guy left out the doors on the opposite side of the pool without me knowing. Maybe he changed his mind about swimming. This story is kind of creepy, but could be a coincidence. The next story was at the same pool, this time at night. We were closing and I was with one other co-worker. I was in our office counting the money we had made for our report. My co-worker went to check both locker rooms and turn the lights off. Moments after she went to check the men's locker room, I heard a very clear, long whistle. A long whistle activates our emergency action plan, essentially meaning that someone is hurt and the other guard needs to assist. I dropped the money and ran to the locker room. When I rounded the corner to the locker room, my co-worker was walking out and was frightened when I was running at her. I asked her why she blew her whistle, and she kept saying she didn't. Turns out, she left her whistle in the office. She was convinced that I was messing with her, but I know I heard a whistle. The second story here still puzzles me, and I have no idea what happened. Some of my co-workers have reported having a guy coming into the pool and going into the locker room, only to never come out. I don't know if anyone here could explain to me what could possibly be happening, but honestly, I still hate working there alone. It scares me. So, a little backstory. I'm a part-time custodian for the town that I live in, and only work when I'm needed. I have pretty much worked at every school in the district, including the middle school that I attended. It's a fairly old school, built in the early 60s, and is actually being torn down in about a year to make room for the new middle school that will be replacing it. I love that school, and never want to see it go, but it is kind of a dump. But every time I get the opportunity to go back and work there again, I always accept. I have always been a firm believer in ghosts, and have had a handful of experiences, but had never experienced anything at that building before, until last winter. I was working a 3-night stint in the old middle school on the 2nd floor from about 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. Quite frankly, I didn't need 7 hours to go about the nightly routine of cleaning, but I was fine with that. On the first night, I went about my business knowing I could pace myself, but was still flying through my work. I'm not overly social when I work the night shifts. I actually like them better because most people are gone by 5 p.m. and I can just have my headphones in and listen to music, podcasts, etc. It was probably around 5 p.m. when I was sweeping classroom floors in the science wing. All the doors were shut and locked, which is mandatory in the science wing, with the lights shut off in the rooms, meaning that all the teachers had gone home for the night. Now, this detail is important. I have a system when it comes to cleaning rooms, and it's very simple. When I've done everything that needs to be done in a room, I shut the lights off in that room. Or when I know I have to go back into a room, for whatever reason, whether it be a stain on the floor that needs to be mopped or a rug that needs to be vacuumed, I leave the lights on in that room as a reminder to go back at some point. There was one room in that wing that needed a wet mop pretty badly, so I left the lights on and the door open, and figured when I was cleaning the bathroom floors in that wing later on, I would make a stop in that room and give it a quick mop. At this point, it's probably around 7 p.m. and I have just finished taking a break with my co-worker, Jeff, who works on the 1st floor. I go upstairs to my closet and gather my bathroom cleaning supplies. About 30 minutes later, I make my way back to the science wing to clean the bathrooms and classroom floor. When I get down to the classroom, I notice that not only is the door shut with the lights off, but the door is locked. Now, I know this wasn't me. I never close the classroom doors until I go around to shut the hallway lights off at the end of the night, just in case I need to go back into a room. I'm also positive that no teachers were left in the building. I unlock the door and the lights are flipped in the off position, so I flip them back on. I then immediately ran downstairs to ask Jeff if he had been in the science wing at all in the last hour or so, and he said no. I then asked if there had been any teacher meetings in the main office or teacher's lounge. The answer was also no. I told him what happened and he wasn't surprised at all, saying that he thinks that the building is haunted. We talked for another minute or two and I went back upstairs to the classroom. And what do you know? The lights are off again. I always try to debunk every experience that I have, but I cannot for the life of me think of anything that would have caused these things to have happened. It was the middle of December and the building was always cold, so there were no windows open, and I made sure of that. I have no explanation for the lights flipping off twice, and no explanation for the door locking on its own. I walk around the entire upstairs, looking in every classroom, trying to find any sign that some teachers could have still been in the building, but I found nothing. I went back to mop the classroom floor and finished the rest of my work for the night. Night 2 was uneventful, but night 3 was the most eventful in my opinion. The whole night I had a feeling of someone watching me, and not your normal feeling of being watched, but also as if I was being followed, especially once all the faculty and students were gone. One could normally chalk this up to paranoia, but this feeling only got worse once I thought I heard footsteps around me a few times. Not heavy footsteps. They were more like a light shuffling. I ended up back at the science wing bathrooms. Now, these bathrooms are faculty only, and the doors are always shut. They both open by just simply pushing the door. No knobs or levers to turn, but the women's bathroom on the left doesn't normally shut all the way. It stays propped open on its own, by about half an inch unless you pull it closed all the way. I always start with the men's room on the right. I go in and out of the boys' room a few times to grab things off my cart. At one point, I open the boys' room door and take 2 or 3 steps in when, suddenly, the door to the girls' room slams shut. It wasn't a normal slam, this was loud, to the point where I jumped, and I don't scare easily. I go back into the hall and the door is shut. I open the door to the girls' room, certain that nobody is actually in there, but just to be safe, I do my normal, "Hello? Is anyone in there? Custodial needs to come in," with the door just cracked open. No response. I open the door fully and both stalls are open, and there's no one inside. I lean back into the hallway and shout for Jeff, thinking he somehow pulled a prank on me, slamming the door and then running away into a nearby classroom. But then it occurred to me, these bathrooms are pretty far removed from any classrooms in both directions. So if it was Jeff or a kid playing a prank, I would have seen them. A few seconds after shouting to whoever may have been listening, I swear I heard faint whispers. The problem was, I couldn't tell what direction they came from. It was like they were all around me. I asked them to speak up and they suddenly went silent. I must have spent 10 minutes playing with that door trying to figure out what could have caused it to slam so hard. There are no windows that could have blown it shut, and the only vent in the room is on the other side of the room and does not blow hard enough to move the door with that kind of force, if at all. I quickly finished my work in the bathrooms and swept the hallway floors so I could finish up for the night. Once I was finished, I took one final walk around to shut off any classroom lights and lock any doors that may have been left open, as well as to shut off the hallway lights. While doing this, I made sure I did not have my headphones in. If something wanted to get my attention, I was going to make sure they got it. Nothing happened while I made my final rounds upstairs, so I went downstairs to find Jeff. I asked him about the bathroom door slamming and where he was around that time. He told me he was in the 6th grade classrooms by the kitchen, which is on the 1st floor and on the opposite side of the building. He also said that he had never experienced that bathroom door do anything weird before. But then again, he had never worked the upstairs wings before. I walked with Jeff, talking to him about random stuff as he went around shutting off his lights. It's probably around 9:15 p.m. at this point. Yes, we were there a little late at this point, but we didn't really mind. As we made our way down, near the music wing, something urged me to look back down the hall from which we came. So I did just that. I turn around, and I still get chills and smile like a madman when I think about what I saw. I saw a dark, grey, transparent figure, shaped like a person, walking from left to right down the hall towards the gym. I immediately started running down the hall to try and see it again, but played it off to Jeff like I thought I saw a real person and was going to direct them out of the building. But I know what I saw. There were no people in the building. There were no basketball practices, no extracurriculars going that late. There should have been absolutely no one else in the building at all. I turn the corner, and I don't see anyone. I check all the bathrooms and no one is there. I checked further down the hall, around the corner, and there was no one. I looked outside to the front plaza, and there wasn't a soul. No people, no cars, nothing. At this point, I honestly got teary-eyed. Not because I was upset or scared, but because I was happy. To that point in my life, those were the most intense experiences I had ever had. I firmly believe that someone was trying to contact me over those 3 days. Jeff and I finished up and went home. I have since been back to that school a handful of times, but unfortunately, have not had any truly great experiences like I did those 3 nights. Other than the shadows that we all sometimes see in the corners of our eyes, but who really knows for sure if those are spirits? They were nothing like the walking figure that I saw, so I chalked them up to my mind playing tricks on me. But like I said, who can be sure? The woman who normally works the upstairs wings of that school doesn't believe my stories. She has worked there for 11 years and says she has never experienced anything in that building before. But she is also one of the most closed-minded people I've ever met. She doesn't believe in ghosts and won't even ponder the idea of aliens or life outside of our planet. She says that I only saw what I wanted to see, and experience what I wanted to experience. But quite frankly, I think that is bullshit. My theory is that since I was clearly interested in what the spirit or spirits were doing, given that I would spend significant amounts of time trying to debunk my experiences, they tried to keep my attention, almost like they were starved for attention altogether. I also think it's possible that since I was in a middle school, the spirit or spirits may be that of middle school aged kids, and they were doing juvenile things just to mess with me, like shutting me out of rooms and scaring me by slamming the door. And then when I call for the voices I was hearing, they go silent, like students sometimes do when they get yelled at for talking during a test. It's all theory, but I think those ideas make sense, and I hope that they make sense to whoever may be listening to this. I know these aren't the scariest encounters, but they are very near and dear to me. Like I said, I've always believed in ghosts, and I've had some smaller encounters with what I believe were ghosts before, but up to that point in my life, these were the most intense encounters I have ever had.
Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.